all of it, but my special part of it, I can tell you, was the last leg that we went on. I was on.
Robert Ballard has long been celebrated as the man who found the Titanic, a name forever etched into the chronicles of exploration. For nearly 4 decades, he has stood as a symbol of human curiosity, courage, and scientific triumph. But behind the fame, behind the headlines and documentaries, lies a deeper, more unsettling truth. One that Ballard himself has only begun to speak about now. At 83 years old, his discovery, once hailed as a crowning moment in marine exploration, was far more complex, far more haunting than the world was ever allowed to see. Long before Ballard became a household name, he was simply a curious boy growing up in Wichita, Kansas. Born in 1942, his earliest fascinations were not with the sea, but with the stars. Like many children of his generation, he dreamed of becoming an astronaut, of traveling beyond Earth's atmosphere into the great unknown. But when his family later moved to San Diego, a new frontier captured his imagination: the Pacific Ocean. Its vastness, mystery, and silence stirred something in him that space never could. To Ballard, the ocean was another universe, equally unexplored, equally alien, but close enough to touch. As he matured, that curiosity became obsession. He studied geology and chemistry, then earned advanced degrees in marine geology and geophysics. Ballard could have easily settled into the quiet life of academia, teaching and publishing papers, but he was never built for that. He was drawn to adventure, to danger, to the challenge of going where no one had gone before. His scientific pursuits eventually led him to the U.S. Navy, where he served both as an officer and as a researcher. It was during this time that Ballard became involved with the Navy's developing program of deep-sea submersibles, machines capable of diving miles below the surface into regions of crushing pressure. Ballard's courage and intellect made him invaluable. Throughout the 1970s, he was involved in top-secret missions during the height of the Cold War, helping the U.S. military locate and study sunken submarines, some carrying nuclear payloads. These missions required exceptional precision, secrecy, and resilience. He learned how to map vast areas of ocean floor using sonar, how to interpret the faintest electronic signals, and how to operate within the tight-lipped culture of military intelligence. What he didn't know then was that these same skills would one day lead him to the most famous shipwreck in history. At the same time, Ballard was breaking new ground for civilian oceanography. He became one of the leading figures in developing remotely operated submersibles, unmanned underwater vehicles that could film the ocean depths in real time. These technologies were revolutionary, allowing scientists to explore parts of the Earth never before seen by human eyes. Ballard's relentless innovation made him one of the most respected deep-sea explorers in the world. But his ambitions were never purely scientific. For decades, one mystery haunted him more than any other: the fate of the r.m.s. Titanic. The Titanic had become a ghost ship in the collective imagination, lost somewhere in the cold, dark Atlantic since its sinking in 1912. Many had tried and failed to find it. The ocean was vast, and the ship's last known coordinates were uncertain. Ballard was determined to succeed where others had not, but his opportunity came in an unexpected form. Behind the public narrative of discovery was a classified agreement with the U.S. Navy, a covert operation hidden under the guise of scientific research. The Navy had lost 2 nuclear submarines, the USS Thresher and the USS Scorpion, both in the Atlantic, and they needed to locate them without drawing Soviet attention. Ballard's newly developed submersible Argo was the perfect tool for the mission. The Navy made him an offer: If he first used his expedition to find and survey the sunken submarines, he could then use the remaining time to search for Titanic. What the world would later celebrate as a moment of pure discovery had, in fact, begun as a cover story for a Cold War military operation. Ballard agreed. During those secret dives, he found the submarines, examined the wreckage, and documented what had caused their destruction: catastrophic implosions under immense oceanic pressure. Once he completed his classified assignment, he finally turned his focus to Titanic. Unlike previous expeditions that relied on vague coordinates and hope, Ballard approached the search with scientific precision. By studying survivor accounts and analyzing how large ships break apart, he concluded that Titanic had split in two before sinking. That realization changed everything. If the ship had broken apart, it would have left a trail of debris leading to the main wreck. It was a bold hypothesis, one that few before him had considered seriously. But Ballard trusted his instincts. Using Argo, he began methodically scanning the ocean floor, following the faintest clues. The pressure at nearly 2.5 miles below the surface was beyond comprehension. Thousands of pounds per square inch, enough to crush metal and bone alike. Yet in that darkness, Argo's cameras transmitted ghostly images of the seabed, illuminated by artificial light for the first time in history. Days turned into nights of tense silence as the team stared at their monitors, searching for anything that didn't belong. Then, finally, the breakthrough came. The camera captured a piece of metal, then a porcelain plate, then more debris. The pattern was unmistakable. They had found the trail. The fragments grew more numerous, leading them inexorably toward something massive, something world-changing. On September 1st, 1985, the moment arrived. From the abyss, a shadow emerged on the screen. Slowly, the cameras drew closer until the unmistakable form of a giant boiler came into view. There was no doubt. They had found Titanic. Moments later, the bow appeared, rising out of the silt like a cathedral of rusted steel. Even through the grainy black and white feed, the sight was breathtaking. The ship that had haunted the world for 73 years now lay revealed, silent and broken, at the bottom of the ocean. The world would later see the iconic images of the ship's bow, the anchor chains, the railings still intact after decades underwater. They would see porcelain dishes scattered across the seabed, and chandeliers twisted into grotesque shapes. But what they did not see, the images Ballard chose never to release, told a far more disturbing story. When Argo's cameras explored the wreck in full, they found not just metal and machinery, but traces of human life. Shoes lay side by side on the seabed, eerily preserved by the cold. Pairs of boots stood aligned, as if their owners had once been standing there, waiting. Suitcases lay open, their contents spilled across the sand, clothes, personal trinkets, the belongings of passengers who never made it home. Watches and jewelry glimmered faintly under the submersible's lights, each one a frozen story of someone lost that night. Ballard knew immediately that this was not just a shipwreck, it was a grave. The presence of these items, so personal and human, struck him deeply. He later recalled how the jubilation of discovery turned to sorrow, how the atmosphere aboard the research ship grew somber as they realized what they had truly found. The Titanic was not a lost treasure. It was a cemetery, sealed in silence 2 miles beneath the sea. Out of respect, Ballard made a decision that would shape the world's understanding of Titanic for decades. When the footage was released to the media, he excluded anything that showed personal effects or implied the presence of the dead. What the public saw was the grandeur of the ship, its haunting beauty in decay. What they did not see were the intimate, unsettling signs of human loss. Ballard feared that revealing too much would turn the wreck into a spectacle, an object of greed rather than reverence. His fears were justified. Within a few years of the discovery, salvage expeditions began. Companies recovered thousands of artifacts: china, jewelry, clothing, even parts of the ship itself. Exhibitions around the world displayed these relics for paying crowds. To Ballard, this was nothing short of desecration. He had fought to protect Titanic's dignity, to keep it untouched as a memorial. Seeing it transformed into an attraction was painful, a betrayal of the respect he believed the site deserved. For decades, Ballard avoided speaking about what he truly saw on the ocean floor. He gave interviews, wrote scientific papers, and shared stories of his technological breakthroughs, but he rarely spoke of the human details. He said that silence was his form of respect. To him, Titanic belonged not to explorers or historians, but to the souls who perished with it. Yet, as he grew older, the burden of silence began to weigh on him. Now, at 83, Ballard has finally begun to open up about that night in 1985 and the discoveries he kept hidden. He admits that the ship's final moments were even more violent than historians believed. The stern section was not merely broken. It was twisted and folded, the steel contorted in ways that spoke of unimaginable force. The damage suggested that as the stern plunged, it imploded under pressure, its metal skin crushing inward like paper. Even more haunting were the patterns found in the debris field. The placement of objects hinted at human presence. Shoes appeared in pairs, suggesting that they had once been worn by people who went down together. Personal effects were clustered as if dropped in the chaos of panic.